Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I am your host, Charles Lung. With me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, and gunner, Jacob Gloth. How are you doing today here, Jacob?
I am all right. How are you, Charles?
I'm doing all right. I feel like I've gotten a good voice workout today, you know?
You have. That's because we recorded earlier for something, and now we got to record again because you're going on vacation, and then the week after I'm going on vacation. We just figured out today, so that's fun.
We're so good at planning things. So if one of our shows got picked up by like a Norwegian like TV production company, would you be cool with that? Would you sell it?
Would I sell it?
Yeah, because they're not gonna get.
Depends what they want to take.
They're not gonna get us.
Yes.
They're not gonna get us to write it. We don't speak Norwegian, right?
No, I don't.
But what if it's like the show that you believe in the most, like your favorite show? Like in Dreams. Is Dreams your favorite?
No. I like Dreams. It's a good show.
I'm trying. It's like picking between my children. I mean,
I don't think I have a favorite. So whatever they pick, I mean, they could take which is probably my favorite right now, which might be. I think it is. I'm not 100% sure. Mm-hmm. It's The Traveler.
That is a good one. I like The Traveler a lot.
That one I like because I would probably. I think I could write it as like a book, like a book of short stories. Mm-hmm. And I could get away with that because that's easier than animation.
That is easy.
But if they want to take that, they want to snag that and steal it from me. For how much do you get paid? Like $2,000 probably.
I feel like it depends on how, are you being paid in US dollars or are you being paid in whatever crazy money they use in Norway?
It's going to be like $5,000 at the most. Yeah. Let's say I would probably sell it.
I would probably sell. How much would you sell our entire back catalog for?
Oh boy.
That's a bigger question because we have a lot of ideas on our back catalog. Obviously, we can't sell the ones that we don't own the rights to. Like, we can't sell the Matrix show or the Batman shows or any of that stuff, but all original characters and shows created by us. Sell it. We can't make anything related to those shows or ideas anymore.
Okay. I'd go for $5 and a shoe.
A shoe full of beer. Have a shoey. Mm-hmm. You ever had a shoey?
All right, my show.
Jake's got a show.
We're really procrastinating.
Yeah, we are.
So I need to get to the point. Is called Outlaw Blues. It's an idea I've had for a while.
Yeah.
Solid name. Outlaw
That is a solid name.
The log line of it is it's a space cowboy opera that falls into or degradates into an outlaw story. So we follow our main character. His name is Solace, Solace. Solace grows up on a mining planet, or not a mining planet, sorry, a scrap world.
Yeah.
It was originally a mining planet, but I changed that, called Drainport.
And it's
oh my god, I'm really fucking this up. The city he lives in is called Drainport. The world is called Sunrise. Because it's rotating with the sun.
Oh, that's cool.
So the sun is always rising.
That's a cool idea. I like that. Is this a scrap world like where I'm assuming there's some sort of government that runs multiple planets? There's an interplanetary
it's
government.
like we don't really get into that because it's not important to the story, but the idea is that this is where like they drop all the old battle cruisers that have been destroyed or all the old equipment that's no longer of use, and then these people tear it apart. And most of the world is like composed of like scrap cities. Most people work in the scrap industry.
Mm-hmm. Scrap and food. Those are the two things they make on this planet.
They probably import most of their food.
Yeah, well, it cooks.
Anyway, because you can't really do agriculture on a scrap world. It's just covered in massive ships.
Yeah, that's true. So they make food, but they don't produce food. They just
maybe you have some farms that are like built into ships.
That could be cool.
So it's like on top of a destroyed battleship. There's potatoes.
Just regular Earth potatoes. I would love it if it was just like this weird, crazy sci-fi world with like aliens and cyborgs and like catmen and whatever. I don't know if that's the kind of world you're building, but and they just like all eat just like McDonald's. It's not changed at all. They just eat McDonald's, and they're like, oh god, this really gives me the shits. McDonald's.
Yeah, it's because American soft power hits everywhere, even in space.
Yeah. I also, if McDonald's wants to do an advertising deal, I will take back that comment.
Yeah, sure.
I'll rescind.
So, Solace has a pretty crappy childhood. He grows up with a dad who's a raging alcoholic and gambler, and his mom's a drunkard, which pushes him to become a very timid boy, repressed anger. And in the beginning of the pilot, that's what we're kind of getting. We're getting his home life and seeing him grow up and become this very, like, to himself, repressed kid who tries to hide his emotions.
Yeah.
And he wants to escape this life. And the only really way to escape is to join the military. So that's what he does. And so he escapes and ends up in the muddy trenches of the war. So I'm imagining the scene from Han Solo.
Oh, yeah.
The movie where Han Solo joins up and then, he's all
muddy.
Sparkly-eyed about it.
Yeah.
And then it's boom, in the trenches. Everyone's shooting at him. There's like giant monster creatures flying over. There's like dinosaur-looking T-Rex things stomping everywhere, and he's running, shooting, panicking.
Is it as dark as Solo? Like physically? Because it feels like they didn't light that movie properly. Is it like that? Where it's just like all the lights are off?
That trench seems awesome. I don't know what you're talking about.
Most of that trench scene was pretty good, but most of that movie is just too dark to see things.
I don't
like
know
when
if
he's
I agree
fighting
with that.
Chewbacca in that pit, that's like I can't even tell what's happening.
No, that's hard to see.
But
I like the aesthetic of the trenches and running around like it was in Solo.
Yeah. I have an idea for how he leaves the planet. It does this.
I can't. Oh wait, for
just like the
when
first.
he joins the military.
Yeah.
Okay.
He maybe it's like his 16th birthday or whatever, and that's when you can sign up for the military, and like he's skinny, but he's not like he's fit, but he's not big, and he's like this kind of timid kid, and his mother's baked him a cake, but it's a badly made cake because she was drunk while she was making it. It's got cigarette butts in it or whatever, like a good parent would do. And, his dad comes in and he's all drunk and angry and he starts like picking on his mom and like hits her once, and
Nah, see, I don't want any violence. The dad's a raging alcoholic. He'll destroy stuff, but he doesn't hit the mom.
Okay.
I don't want to paint the dad as a bad guy, like violently. I want him just to be a person that's overcome by addiction.
Yeah.
And the mom, I don't want her. She still loves her kid, and so does the dad. It's just they're so overcome with their addiction that they're stuck in this lifestyle and they can't get out.
Well, I think it would be good if like he doesn't hit his wife, but he like messes up the kid's cake or something, like does something that's like it's not cool, like it's not a nice thing to do, but it's like he did it because he's drunk. And our guy, what's his name, Solace just flips out, like he unleashes that repressed rage he's had for years now, and he just like pulps his dad, just like really beats the shit out of him, and like he comes out of this fugue state of just being like really he's super mad. He just punches his dad, and then his mom comes over screaming at him like, oh, what did you do? What did you just do? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? That sort of thing. Because this is the first time she's ever really seen him flip out. And she, like you said, she loves her son, but she also loves her husband, presumably, if they're, if that's the kind of relationship you're painting with, that they're just both addicts who, rely on each other for addiction just as much as they rely on the alcohol. And, like, she's flipping out and, like, screams at him and starts, crying and sobbing, and he just, like, he's got, like, this thousand-eye stare, and he just, like, comes out of it and he's like, what the fuck? Whoa. And he's like, I can't stay here anymore. And he just like grabs like a duffel bag with all of his stuff, and like the next scene we see him walking up to the army recruitment thing, and they're like, name, age, what's a third thing they could ask for that would show how depressing this universe is? Star sign.
The identification number. It's probably some sort of ID number.
Life expectancy.
Life expectancy. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
That's great because it could describe your social class, life expectancy.
He's like,
He could be like, 32,
yeah, if that,
45.
that sort of thing.
So he joins the military. He's in the Han Solo trenches. As he's running through, we're going to see him run into his friend. His name's McCart. M lowercase c, uppercase C, A-R-T, McCart. McCart and him are like, military buddies, but they're also like friends. And he's like, he runs into McCart's little trench and they're panting, freaking out. And he's like McCart's trying to calm him down. McCart is kind of like the voice of reason, and Solace is, freaking out because he's not totally accustomed to this military life yet.
Yeah.
And this is a huge, crazy battle.
Maybe training.
McCart's trying to calm him down. He's like, all right, we just need to get to the edge of that field and we can get back to the camp. He's like, okay. He's like, all right, ready? 3, 2, 1, let's go. And they start running, sprinting across the field. Maybe we have a POV shot where he's running and everything. The camera's all shaky. But then as he's like getting close to the end, McCart's ahead of him. He's like, come on. And he's still running. And he looks back, and in that moment he gets shot. Cut to black. That's the end of the pilot.
Yeah. Blam. You see some big lizard monster with like a ray gun shoots him. And, then he falls over and his face is in the mud and he looks up. And I'm imagining it's still in POV mode, right? And he looks up and the big monster just puts his foot on his neck, like his boot on his neck, and blasts him in the face.
Okay, not blast him in the face, but because he's not dead.
Yeah.
Maybe I like that imagery though. So still POV. He looks up, the monster's right there, aims the gun right at his face, and that's where it cuts to black and it ends. Second episode picks up at that same point. McCart shoots the guy and starts dragging him, and we fade away. He wakes up, and he's in the hospital, and this is where he falls in love with the nurse, whose name's Solace. So they start having a relationship as he heals. But once he makes a full recovery, their relationship sort of hits its peak. They're both in love with each other, but he has to go back into the fighting. She's just a nurse and he wants them to get together, and so he ends up giving her like his access to his pension account so that she can survive while he's at the war, and use the money to get a house and start their life, so that when he comes back, everything gets rolling. So he goes back to the fighting, and he gets put on as a drop team on a ship. He's no longer with McCart. McCart's been shipped somewhere else. Maybe we can have a sad scene where they, split ways.
Yeah. Maybe McCart lost like a limb when he saved. I keep wanting to say Sionis. I know.
Solace.
I know it's Solace. But I keep wanting to say Sionis. Solace, like when he saves Solace, he like gets a like something cut off, like an arm or a foot or something. So he gets a robot one, so he's fine. But you can still see there's some emotional and physical trauma that's happened to him from the war.
Maybe he gets like a Purple Heart and he gets discharged.
Yeah, he gets to
go. Solace has to keep going. So Solace gets stationed on a ship, and there's a massive space battle. And during the battle, he gets sucked out into space in his little spacesuit, because he's got that on because he's a ground trooper. And he gets dropped, They like drop him through the air and they land on the planet. So he's got on this kind of like big exosuit, not massive, but like it's like the Master Chief in Halo. It's the size of you, but maybe adds there's 5 or 6 inches between you and the outside world. Really thick clothing, essentially.
Yeah.
And so now he's in space, running out of oxygen. The battle's over. It's just, everything's being destroyed. Maybe he gets knocked out and he wakes up, and that's when the battle's over.
Oh,
and
yeah, that's always
this could be a really fun, stressful scene where he's like trying to figure out what he should do, and he's panicking and freaking out. We could have him like passing out from lack of oxygen and like dreaming of Hollis and his friends and his life back home and all that kind of stuff.
And you can show like a flashback of like some good times he had with his dad and his mom.
Yeah.
Maybe
they went fishing on the edge of a battleship.
Yeah, they went fishing off the edge of a battleship, and he caught like this trout with 3 eyes and like 2 faces, and he's like super proud. We could have that thing where it might be a bit of a cliche, but like that thing where he passes out in the spaceship or spacesuit and wakes up to the bleep, 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 10% oxygen remaining, that sort of thing, and that's what wakes him up. Or it could be like a rock or like a face. Like, that would be good if it was just like a lizard face, a lizard monster's like hand or something.
A skeleton on top of him.
Yeah, just like bumps into him in space, and he's like...
And he freaks out, he's like, oh, and he's, breathing heavy, and that's when you get 10% oxygen remaining, because he's breathing heavy. And as he's, going through this, he sees a scrap ship, and he decides to cut or release his suit's oxygen so he can jet over to the scrap ship, which he does, and he gets over there, and he barely gets onto the ship, and it's just a bunch of scrappers who recognize that he's from Sunrise.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, maybe they just have a certain look to him.
Maybe he's got a tattoo, like a cool sunrise tattoo that kids get when they're 10.
Oh, maybe, yeah. They have some sort of identification thing on their arm or something.
Yeah. Because I think that would be cool.
So they're like, oh, this guy, we'll help, we'll bring him back home with us. And so he ends up back into Sunrise. And at this point, he wants to get back to Hollis, right? He's back at his home world, which he knows a little better, but he needs to get back in Hollis, get back to Hollis. So he tries to gamble to get off the planet, but he falls into addiction and poverty. And that's kind of the whole episode, is that he gets back to the planet and then he falls into the addiction and poverty, and he's trying to get out, and he's continually losing his money over and over again. And he only gets out and realizes he's in this because he runs into his dad, who's also in the same spot he is in.
Yeah.
And he realizes he's become his dad, the person he left to not become.
Maybe it's like, and you could do a cool scene where it's like, he's just gotten thrown out of another gambling hall, and he's like drunk, and he's just like, ugh, and he like falls up against a wall and like sits down with his head in his hands next to this like old homeless guy, and then they start having a conversation. They share a bottle of liquor, because that's always a thing in movies. Homeless people share their liquor with each other, and so he's just passing it forth, and talking about their problems. And then the homeless guy like brings up like, oh yeah, I had this deadbeat son, left. I don't even know if he's alive or dead. I couldn't care less. And then, or like, I think about him every day, but I don't know if he's alive or dead. And then he looks up and just looks over, and he sees his dad sitting there, caked in dirt, and he's got this big long raggedy beard, and he's wearing like torn up clothes, and that's like, he finds out his mom died or something. Yeah, like, oh, my wife passed a few months ago, and I don't even know if my son's still alive. And then he's like, oh my god, what happened?
And so his dad sees his son and knows that he has to help him, so he gives all of his money to his son to get him off world back to Hollis. So it's kind of bittersweet, because his dad helps him out of the poverty and addiction, but his dad can't help himself out.
Yeah.
He can only save his son.
Gives him an old family heirloom.
So tearfully.
It's a watch
maybe,
or something, It could be like you know what? I know this doesn't really match the sad kind of bummer, and not a bummer tone, just serious tone you're giving, but if it's like a Garfield watch, like it was a McDonald's toy, and it's been 2,000 years since and it's like a family heirloom that's been passed down generations of this family, and he like gives it to him, puts it in his hand, he says, sell this, go back to the woman that you love, forget about me,
I'm a goner anyway. And then he gives it to him, and they have a tearful goodbye, maybe at the spaceport.
I've been dead for years now. That sort of thing.
End of episode. Next episode, Solace returns to Hollis, but she has a new guy. It's been so long. It's been, I don't know, a year or two. And but Hollis tells him that she still loves him. So they meet, somewhere at like a store or something. He runs into her. She's like, but I have a new guy. I'm sorry, I can't be with you. And he's like, what? But me, I thought we were in love. And she's like, I do love you, but I can't get away from this guy. You don't understand. And that's when he comes up. His name's Danny. And he beats the crap out of Solace for even talking to Hollis. And he throws him. Danny's like he's a kingpin. He's a gangster. And so he throws him into the desert of the planet with his buddies.
Yeah.
And this is a whole episode. So, in the desert, Solace finds a scrawny nag and he rides it. Because he's trying to find a way out.
Yeah.
And through this, similar to when he was alone in space, he's going to see mirages of his life and his future and his past. While this is happening, I was thinking we could play A Horse with No Name. That'd be a fun song for this.
Great song for that.
He's riding a nag that doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
And so he's going through the desert, and he finds the ocean, and he sees in the middle of the ocean or lake that there's a water port, which is like a spaceport but on the water. And he lets his horse stay there. He says thank you, and he swims through the water, probably avoiding some weird monstrous creatures, and gets to the water port, where he convinces the shipmaster by telling him his story. He explains what happened to him. And the shipmaster's like so empowered by the story, that he was like, I'm gonna give you a ride and I'm gonna give you a gun. And that's how the episode ends.
Or maybe he tells him the story and the shipmaster is like, son, that's one of the saddest stories I ever did hear, And we Sunrise boys, we gotta look out for each other. And he clasps his arm in that cool way that guys do. And then you can see he's also got a sunrise tattoo on his wrist.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah. We Sunrise boys, we gotta stick together. I'm gonna give you a gun and a ship. Is it a ride and a gun?
Yeah, he's giving him a ride. He's not gonna give him a ship.
Yeah.
And so the next episode is Solace returning to Hollis's planet. And he burst into this ballroom that there's a dance at, where Danny is dancing with Hollis. And he has a gun. He points it at Danny, and they're kind of far away from him. They're on the other side of the room. He points and he says this is a showdown. You took my girl. I'm gonna get you for this, for what you did to me. And Hollis, she freaks out. She's like, no, you don't understand. And that's where she tells him the truth, which is she does this all the time. She gets people to fall in love with her that are at the war.
Yeah.
And she takes their pension and all their money.
If
you remember earlier, yeah.
Man, because the way that you were setting the story up, I thought it was going to be kind of like a Great Gatsby situation.
Yeah.
If there was some sort of time jump, and he comes up and he's rich and this famous outlaw, and then he shows back up and he's trying to woo Hollis, who has been with this guy for a few years. But that is an even more diabolical twist. I love it.
Thank you. I kind of thought about the Great Gatsby thing, but I decided to make Hollis evil because I don't know, her character really didn't have any motivations besides being the ploy of this love triangle.
Yeah.
So she turns out she's like Danny's partner. They're like a kind of Bonnie and Clyde sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're in love, and they run these scams all over the world and universe. And so Solace is obviously distraught, and now the gun's shaking in his hand, and he doesn't know what to do. In this moment, standing in the middle of the ballroom, everyone's staring at him what is he gonna do? And Danny draws his gun and shoots him. And so he gets shot in the chest, and he holds his chest. Everyone screams around him. He drops his gun, falls back. We get a nice shot of him sprawled out on the floor with the blood leaking out of him, just staring up. And this is where Rocky Raccoon by the Beatles plays. And we slowly pull out. Rocky Raccoon, by the way, was the inspiration for this scene. If you've heard that song, it's very similar to the scene. So it fits it very well. And it's kind of fun because it sort of beats the trope of like a sad song playing at the time, and Rocky Raccoon is like weirdly upbeat for the sad story.
Yeah.
So it pulls out as he's bleeding out on the floor. And that's the end of that episode. We have one more.
How is this gonna end?
Almost done here.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm curious. I want to know what's happening to Solace.
Solace wakes up in a medical room.
Uh-huh.
And he tries to get up from the bed and he gets pushed back down. He's like, you need to rest. And it's McCart.
Yeah.
McCart's back. Boom.
McCart's back.
McCart, by the way, is literally just McCartney. Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
I just cut off the name.
I like it. I thought
it's not clever.
You know, I thought it was like
name,
Descartes. You know,
no.
kind of like Descartes, McCart. I knew it was also McCartney, and somebody that we know. I thought it was his name also.
No, it's not him. No, Paul McCartney. Anyway, so he pushes him back down. He says he tries to persuade him to avoid the path he's going down. He tries to convince him that his rage won't get him anywhere. And he explains to him that Danny is like this huge kingpin. And if he does what he's going to do, not only are outlaws going to hunt him down, but also the law, because, you know, they paid off the law. So he's a goner if he does it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Solace, he's telling him, he's like, this rage won't get him anywhere. And Solace says, rage is all I know. And he grabs his gun, he gets up from bed.
Yeah.
And this is like, Solace is different now, obviously. He's been this like wide-eyed kid who's had these big dreams of, you know, adventure and love. Now he's broken, and all he wants is revenge.
Yeah. Like a hero.
And so I don't really know how we're going to get fully up to it, but if there's anything in between him getting out of the bed and getting to this point. But in broad daylight, he's going to walk into a cafe with his gun, where Hollis and Danny are, and he's going to shoot them both.
Yeah. Yeah.
This moment, he's even more broken, because not only did he just kill, he killed Danny, who he's fine with killing. He wanted to kill him because that guy's
a jerk.
You know, he's a jerk. He's a douche. But Hollis, despite everything she did to him, he's still in love with her.
Yeah.
And so Danny can't, you know, reason with the fact that he just killed his love. And so he's running away from the police and the outlaws and the bounty hunters. And eventually he's tracked down. And bounty hunter's behind him, and he says, don't turn around. But, you know, he has to.
Yeah.
He's gotta. So he turns around, whips around, pulls out his gun, but just before he can shoot, he gets shot in the chest. And we get, you know, a very similar scene where he's on the ground bleeding out in the snow. And it pulls up away as the song "Hang Me Tonight" by Marty Robbins plays, and the blood slowly leaks out. And maybe we can have some narration or something. I don't really know how to get this point through, but his last thoughts are regret, because he feels like he still shouldn't have killed Hollis.
Yeah,
because he loved her. So despite what she did to him, this long, wild goose chase, he still loves her, and it ends with him dying in the snow.
Damn, usually I'm the one with the bummer endings.
That's Outlaw Blues.
That's Outlaw Blues. I've got the Outlaw Blues for that. I watched that. I've got a few ideas. So,
what's that? Like
when he busts into he walks into the cafe and just very casually, I feel like kind of like The Godfather. If you see that scene in The Godfather where he just walks up and puts a bullet in the guy's head, and then just like eats his spaghetti or whatever. It's just like walks up, puts a laser blast through his head, through Danny's head, and everyone runs out. You know, everybody flees the room and they're screaming and stuff. And he, you know, holds the gun on Hollis, and she's like begging him, like, "Oh no, I never stopped loving you. We can still be together. I love, you know, she's begging for her life and just telling him everything he wants to hear. But you know, he knows now. He's not a kid anymore. He's a man, and he knows it's all a lie. And he's like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And then he blasts her face off. And I think it should be gory. Like her entire, like it's not a pretty death. It's like you can see like
it's JFK.
Yeah, it's exposed brain and skull and all this stuff, and you're like, ooh, you know. and then he's running, and then maybe we can have like for part of the episode, because for a show called Outlaw Blues, there isn't that many outlaw gunfights, you know? So I think maybe the last, that last section, you can have a montage of him, like, outwitting and, like, beating outlaws in fights, you know? Like, escaping.
See, he's not really tough is what I'm trying to get at. He's not, like, he doesn't win any of these fights. The only time he actually wins is when he surprises this dude, like, in a cafe, like a coward.
Yeah, he isn't a very good fighter. That is true.
He's a loser. He's not good at what he does, but he has passion.
He's got passion.
And he has determination. He continues to fight. But in the end, you know, he loses his reason to keep going.
If you didn't already have a song for the ending credits, I would suggest "Blowing in the Wind" by Bob Dylan. You know, because everybody loves Bob Dylan. But I agree. Marty Robbins. Is that his name? Marty?
Yeah, Hanging Me Tonight is the perfect song for this ending because it's about a guy who shoots his love.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely watch Outlaw Blues.
Yeah.
Are we doing it like a more Star Wars kind of universe where everything's like dirty and used? Or like more of a Star Trek universe where things are like, you can tell that this is the future, you know?
This is like definitely a Star Wars, more gritty than Star Wars.
Yeah, dirty, gritty.
Like it's a very messed up, torn world.
Yeah.
Except maybe the planet where Hollis is. That's kind of, I was imagining, is kind of a brighter place, a more wealthy planet. I don't know what to call it.
Maybe Hollis started her life as like this rich woman, you know, this person who comes from privilege. And then, you know, she got bored of that, so she fell in with the characters like Danny, and then is using her feminine wiles to make money, you know?
Yeah.
And she could lie to him.
They swindle, like, you know, army people out of their pension, like, all the time.
Yeah.
There's tons of these guys, and usually they die in the desert, or they never make it back to her because they died in the war.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hell yeah. I like it. I dig it. I watch it. Is he going to a different planet, or is the same planet just have snow?
Same planet. Planets have more than one climate.
I know.
They don't all have to be the same thing.
But in sci-fi, planets only have one
I want to defeat
climate.
that trope that they only have one climate.
I hate that. I hate that trope. I really don't
It's a jungle planet. No.
No, there's like a whole ass planet. And it's like, oh yeah, it's a whole planet of things, but they all have one culture and they all look the same. It's like we have one planet with one species that is dominant, and we all look really different from one another. And like, shit, man, things are so different here versus there. And it's like, well, why is, you know, Mars, they're all just one kind of people? It's weird, you know?
They're all Martians.
They're all Martians.
Yes.
But yeah.
I think it'd also be fun to make this world, I don't know if you noticed, but it's kind of clear that no one has their own spaceship, you know? This isn't like normal sci-fi media. It's like, just going on a spaceship's like getting on an airplane. You don't have an airplane, you don't fly somewhere. So it's kind of like he's always traveling via rides with truckers or rides on commercial jets or stuff like that. So it's different than normal sci-fi, I would say.
And how long are these episodes going to be? So I'm thinking if it's 6 episodes, right? That's how many episodes you wrote?
Yeah, well, see, you know, it's 7 episodes, but
7. That was close.
There could be like 8 or 9.
I feel like you do like hour-long episodes, you know, or like 40-minute long episodes, and you could have we could have a lot of like you see this world, and like he can get into more misadventures, you know, because I agree he shouldn't be a good fighter, but you know he
well, you know, we can expand it. Misadventures makes me think it's kind of like you know, fun little side stuff, but it's you can just expand the war.
Yeah.
And you can expand. I mean, you can expand the war twice.
He also
you can expand his journey in the desert.
Yeah.
You can expand that kind of stuff. If we're gonna make it more than one episode.
Well, he becomes like a gambling addict and then kicks the gambling addiction all within the same episode. So I feel like we could stretch that over 2 episodes. You know?
Well, if it's an hour-long episode, it should probably be 1. But we'll see.
We'll see when this gets picked up by Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Who would you cast?
And they're like, we want 11-minute episodes. Probably do it in 11-minute episodes.
You could probably do it in 11 minutes. Yeah. Who would you cast? Who are you casting as your main as Silas?
As Solace.
Solace.
His name is important because he's searching for solace, but he never finds it.
Oh, good.
His name is what he wants, but he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Solace.
Chris Pratt.
Timothy Chalamet.
Okay, Timothy Chalamet. Chris Pratt, and it's like we just like don't change the way he looks, and it's like, yep, that's 16-year-old
Yep.
Solace. We'll look at that skinny kid, and it's just Chris Pratt all beefed up from all the human growth hormone he injects in himself every day. I don't know if he does that.
Yep.
Seems like the kind of guy that would. But thank you all for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me has always been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, and gunner, Jacob Gloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more of it for some reason, you can find us at everywhere they sell podcasts, even where they give away podcasts. We have a Reddit. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Twitter. We have a Gmail. You're not allowed to know what the Gmail is.
I think it's on the YouTube. I mean, you can email the Gmail if you want, but
if you want to email the Gmail, go for it. I'm the only one who looks at it, and it's usually just spam. So I would enjoy it. Just put your name in the something fun in the subject line, and then I'll probably look at it. Put a curse word in the subject line. Companies don't do that. That's how I'll know.
That's how you'll know.
All right, goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
I love you.
I don't.